Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. And I'm going to start the show off this week because I'm coming in hot. I'm pretty annoyed today over the Major League Baseball All-Star game and how they keep tweaking the format to make it worse. But before we get there, talking about summer sports, man, I had a swim meet and I put on here Unreliable Parents. I know, Coach, you don't even have to add in if you don't want to. I don't want you to get in any trouble, but I'm just going to say, as a coach, I'm not even the coach, man. But as a coach, I understand, like, I remember when we would do summer league, like football, like 7-on-7s and stuff, how hard it was to get a team. And just being like, oh, my parents are going to do this instead, so I don't have a ride. And, like, kids are, like, in high school trying to put that together themselves. Now, whenever you're doing, like, youth sports, parents should know, like, what to follow as type of, like, in terms of protocol. Like, I have never seen a parent that didn't have a cell phone. You know, they're always like, oh, I didn't get it. It's like, yeah, but you're on your phone the entire time. Like, you're not even paying attention to your kid. How do you not get the email updates? Or just download the app at this point. Like, you're on your phone. Like, when they have the app, you just declare if your kid can come or not. Very simple. I don't understand how parents don't do it, and then the day of, they're trying to scramble for the last swim meet, by the way. And it was away. So, like, we already had the one late show this summer. And it's tough to make plans. Like, we could have easily recorded ahead of time, but then you're like, well, we might have to do some late swims and, like, add these other relays and stuff in. It's like, where are the rest of the kids? Like, you can't tell the kids, like, hey, we're going to make sure everyone swims. And then when the kid doesn't show up, that would be the same parent that's like, well, why didn't my kid swim when we do show up? And it's like every other sport. Like, hey, my kid, yeah, he never came to practice. How come he's not starting shortstop? Like, I'm waiting for him to hit 300. I don't know why he's not playing. Like, he can't even throw the ball. Or, like, what's worse is, like, for some of the kids playing sports, like, where their mom is out there on the field with them. And I'm making this baseball related now. Just because, like, I'm watching the All-Star game. And I know, watching youth sports playing baseball, it's like the parents aren't invested anymore. The parents don't care. I know, like, back in the day, like, when I was growing up, like, my dad would always be like, yo, you're going to go do this and you're going to do it. And, like, that was it. There was no debate. It wasn't like watching a kid cry and then, like, yeah, I'm just not going to swim today. And their mom's like, you don't have to, buddy. You don't have to swim. I'm like, the kid's 15. Why is he crying? What are you doing? So that's my little rant there, unspecific to anything real. But I just understand, like, they keep complaining about how there's no umps or there's no refs because no one wants to do it because the parents complain all the time. And now I'm hearing, like, hey, we need people to volunteer. And then you look at how many parents volunteered. It's like, oh, only 15% of all the parents volunteered. It's like, well, what are the other 85% doing? They're not even coming up. Like, they don't even bring their kids anywhere. So, like, we could just scratch them from the team. But, of course, you don't want to do that, like, in the summer theme. I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why the parents, like, I don't know.
But that was one of the things that surprised me this year with, like, the early summer T-ball. Like, how many parents that I thought, well, it seemed like a lot of parents were there, like, keeping an eye on their kid. Like, maybe they weren't actively coaching, but, like, there was enough that, like, it felt like we kind of had extra set of eyes. And then the game started, and it was like people were just coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, we're really having, like, 50, 70 people watching this 3-inning T-ball game? Like, and why are more people helping right now?
That's my thing. Like, I never really want to coach. I mean, I coached my brother coming up, and seeing that, like, as an older brother, that's pretty easy. Like, I could see, like, my dad looking back, like, he's like, I'm checked out. I'm not coaching. Like, at some point, you just want to enjoy it. But then, like, when back in the day, like, it was me, I was the assistant coach for, like, flag football. And then there was one other parent that was the head coach, and we got no other people helping. And like, we're, like, wrangling, like, 15 kids that you don't even know the names of because they never come to practice. And it's like, hey, my kid's not in. I'm like, buddy, I've never seen you in my life. I don't even know which kid is yours. Like, has he been at practice? Well, no. And it's like, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to call timeout and teach him how to play? like, what are you doing? Then it's the same parents that are complaining that there's no sports anymore. Like, I just want to drop my kid off and then that's it. They don't even do that.
And I think that's the tough thing, is that you have, like, and on one hand, I will defend the kids a little bit, because if you have sports that, like, you have a multi-sport athlete and they're saying, well, my basketball coach wants me in summer league and winter league, and I'm doing all this extra basketball, and then my travel baseball coach has me doing all this stuff, and now I'm trying to fit in weightlifting and 7-on-7 stuff for football, that they're spread thin with trying to participate in everything, that I think in that end it kind of hurts a little bit too, that you're not getting the consistency that you did in the past, where you had more, like, there wasn't as much being offered. And so you could have, like, in the summer, it being more of an isolated thing where, like, your kids are lifting and playing football, and, like, there wasn't as many opportunities for some of those summer leagues, or at least the times were different.
And that's the one thing that, like, going forward, I think there has to be a change either at the college level, which we're going to talk about later in the show, because some coaches are pushing for, like, now the NILs, where if you find something your kid likes and they expect him to do it or her to do it year round, it's got to be, like, it's going to be tough for a parent to be like, all right, we're going to have you do this. And then you have some sports where it's like, hey, I really like baseball, Dad. I really want to play it. I want to do, like, travel baseball year round. I'm going to play the sport. And then you get to college and it's like, yeah, we only offer 2 scholarships or whatever it is, like a very limited amount of number. And it's like, okay, well, why would I push him towards that then? Like, if I'm looking at it in terms of, like, opportunity for my kid, yeah, they like a sport, and the coach in high school, I'd be like, well, what is he getting out of it? Are you going to start paying him? Like, because I mean, some parents take their kid all around for AAU for basketball and stuff, and you know that they get, like, benefits or whatever on the AAU circuit. Parents, I don't even know how it works these days, like, with kids getting, like, their sponsorships with, like, shoes and stuff. And now they're getting paid in college. But, like, if you're not on that level, like, some parents, I don't understand how. I mean, I guess it's, like, fun for them or whatever, where they're investing all this money. But I think, like, with gas going up, man, I don't know how you can be driving multi-states every weekend to watch your kids in, like, these tournaments. I honestly hate bringing up esports all the time, but I feel like as parents get older, like I said about them being on their phones or whatever and just, like, checked out at, like, not even watching your kid participate. Because, like, you can kind of see how many parents are, like, standing up and, like, cheering on their kid. It's like some kids, their parents are just sitting in the corner, like, you know, they can't really see them. And you would think that like, you're here, why wouldn't you watch your kid swim? It's like, oh yeah, I'm here though. Come tell me when you're done. And it's like, all right, well, I could see, like, a lot of parents going forward. Like, I don't get esports, but I can drop you off and you can take care of yourself. And what you're going to play video games for, like, 5 hours? I'll pick you up then. Okay. Very easy. And you can do it over the internet. Oh, awesome. Even more, you can practice at home.
But I think, like, even to that end, just having it's a step in the right direction just to have consistent parents that will at least drop you off for practices and meets, because there's a lot of parents that over the years that I've worked with that, you know, you're trying to get the kid to practice, or you're trying to find out how to get them home, and then by the time, like, you drop them off or something, there's, like, 4 or 5 cars in the drive, and they're like, oh, practice is over? Sorry about that. I didn't know. Like, you know, and you're dealing with those types of things. And, like, taking it a step further, it's the preparation stuff. Like, every year, there's always at least 2 or 3 kids that can't start their conditioning days on time because they don't have a physical. And it's like, all spring, you say, hey, you need to make sure that you have physical day on your calendar. And it was today for us. And so we posted in our huddle chat so that our football players know, like, in all of your individual texts with your friends, tell anyone that's an athlete, they need to come to the school today to get their physical, because it's the one time of the year where it's free. If they don't come today for whatever reason, they're on their own to get their physical completed. And so it's like you're trying to push for it, but sure enough, the first day you'll have someone that walks in the door and goes, "Well, where's your physical?" "Oh, I didn't know I needed one." Like, you've needed one every single year that you've played sports.
Oh, that's why I'm kind of against physicals, because like growing up, every year you'd have to go get one, and it was the same BS where they didn't even check you out. Like, I don't think I've ever been like in an actual physical. Like, you hear about these college kids are getting caught with like these heart rhythm like incidents and stuff like that. It's like they never would have busted me for that. Like, it's not like you go to a physical and they make you jog. I had to do that like as an adult, right? Where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna actually give you a physical. We're gonna do like a stress test and some other stuff." It's like, as a kid, you never even did that. Like, it's like, "Hey, you having any issues?" Like, "No, let me just check your lungs real quick." And it's like, "Here, do you need me to sign that?" "Yeah." "Any issues?" Like, "Well, no, you told me no." So it's like, if you're a kid, you'd be like, "You know what? I think I do have some heart issues." Plus, some kids, like, you're gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the doctor." You're gonna be like, "Yeah, you should probably lose some weight." And then their coach is telling them, "You should probably gain 20 pounds. We need you to eat up the middle a little bit." And they get mixed signals. They don't know, man. So, I don't know. I feel like some of that regulation, I guess it's like for liability or whatever. But if they're going to do it, like, at least, actually do some tests. Like, I mean, you played high school and stuff. Did you ever, like, even in college, man, I don't even think they did anything at college. I just went there. And then I was having like, physical therapy for like I had a hip injury. So like they were like, I guess it was like a hip pointer, I don't know. But like I was going to physical therapy for that. And they were like, "Yeah, we talked to your therapist. He's like, he said you're cool." I'm like, "All right." They signed the paper. Like, I literally did nothing. And then that was it, like college ball. And then I'm like, how are these guys getting caught with all these issues? Like, are they passing out at practice, or like, is it like an Iowa Hawkeyes thing where you're like peeing blood? Like, is that the level it takes to get a real physical or a real checkup? Because I have a hard time believing that they're giving like everyone like an MRI or something, a heart scan, like an echo. Like, I don't even know what they would do, right? What did they do for you?
It was always just the check for a hernia.
You sure that was a doctor?
That's all. It was like breathing, check her eyes.
I don't think I ever got checked for hernia. I feel ripped off now. They didn't, like, they just asked me, like, "Yo, you having any issues?" Like, nah. Like, I remember one time in like 8th grade, they checked for like scoliosis, and they were like, "Hey, you don't have it. You probably won't get it. We'll never check this again." And guess what? They never did. The one time, I'm like, "Oh, perfect. I guess that will never happen to me."
It's just lucked out.
Yeah. Now, shifting gears a little bit, Matt. Little off-topic stuff. If I told you, "Hey, pick me up a Gatorade," would you ever bring home lime cucumber?
Unless you asked for it.
No one would ask for that. Let's be honest.
You might.
I get this, and I'm like, why is this in my fridge? Like, who brings home lime cucumber? That's not an apple. That's not a normal flavor. And what do you think that tastes like?
Well, it serves you right for getting a Gatorade when you can get Powerade and get a high-performance product.
I thought you were going to say some other random drink. I'm like, are you sponsored by them? Are you doing an ad? It tastes like garbage. I don't think how anyone could drink this and be like, it's not healthy. Like, let's look and see what the sugar is in this stupid drink. It's like 21 grams. And I bring this up because like I did the Big Ten 10K, right? I get a new medal. Does it have UCLA or USC on it? No. So I'm kind of confused. I'm like, I guess I didn't support them with this run. And I forgot to bring this up last week because I actually did it the week before. Horrible time. Wasn't my worst, wasn't my best. Like, it wasn't, I still finished like fairly decent in my age group, which has gone up. So a little embarrassing there. But it rained like on Saturday. And I'm like, I'm all set up. I'm like, I'm going to run on Sunday. So I start running. I get there. I'm going to run on the Riverwalk, right? The Greenway. I'm pretty sure the Greenway goes all the way from Florida all the way up like the East Coast. It's like a long path, relatively flat. I start running. This girl stops me. She's like, "Hey, just so you know, there might be some flooding. But if you have high-heeled shoes on, you'll be fine." I'm like, high-heeled shoes? Who the hell's running in high-heeled shoes? And she's like, well, I got these like lifts on. I run in these to build my calves. So I'm like, why are you talking to me? I have my timer going. Like, this is slowing me down. This is slowing me down at all counts. I'm not checking out your shoes. I need to get going. So I'm like, I'm probably going to get wet then. So I start running, It's not even, and I'm just going to state, like, it's not raining at all. So I'm going, and I'm like, oh, there's a couple puddles here. This must be what she's talking about. I get about 3/10 of the way. Or wait, no, what I had to do, 10K? So I already ran 3K. So I'm like a third of the way or whatever. Almost a third because it was like 3 point something. Complete flood. And I'm like on this flat road. It was weird. It was almost like a spring or something, and the hill was just rushing water. And I'm like, well, you know what they always tell you? Like, don't drive across something like that because you're going to get swept under. And I'm like, I'm not about to get drifted away. The only thing I had on me was my cell phone. And so I'm like, I'm going to turn around and whatever. I'm going to turn around and run and try to like just spot it. Because I couldn't pace myself anymore at that point. Because I'm like, normally I run up halfway to like the 5 kilometer or whatever, and then turn away and run that same like distance back so that I kind of know like when I get to the bridge at the end, I can kind of like book it, I start running back, Matt. The water's flooded everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not even raining. Where's this water flooding from? So I'm trudging through water. And at this point, I'm like, I just need to finish. Because if I stop and cut up through like the neighborhood and go around to get my car and like try to find another place to run, I already ran 3/10 or 3 kilometers. I'm not running
it's
a 13K or 14K, whatever it would be.
Drive your car and it's still registering like, wow, you really picked that time up at the tail end.
No, I would have to start over because I think they have like the timer or whatever. I have my watch like synced up to it or whatever. So like they're gonna know like this dude took like a 4-hour break and then ran the next 6K. Like, I would have to immediately like run through the neighborhood, but it is all hills. So I'm like, I'm trudging through the water. So I'm trudging. I trudge down 2 kilometers. I go back towards the flood, and I'm like, all right, this is fine. My shoes are wet. Like, everything's wet. I could feel like my shirt's soaked, and I'm like, I hope my phone works at the end of this, because if it's wet from trudging through all this water, I'm going to be annoyed. I finally get done, and I have to like trudge through knee-deep water for another. I started my timer again because I'm like, I have no idea where I am, and I'm trudging through knee-deep water, and I ended up going another 3 kilometers. Like, that's how off I was. I get down there. The fire department's there. They had closed the park. So I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm like, hey, can I, get my car out of here? Like, how am I supposed to get out if all the gates are locked? So then I have to wait for the guy to come unlock the gate. I'm like, this is a disaster. There was like one other car there. He's like, hey, did you see anyone? Like, there wasn't like anyone down there, right? I'm like, I don't know. I ran past a guy biking, and I thought, buddy, you're not getting very far. But I never saw him turn around. I was like, I also didn't see him float by me either, like down the river, because it was almost like right beside me. So I forgot to bring up my 10K. That's what it is. I asked for the Gatorade. I come home, lime cucumber, disgusting. It's just full of sugar. It's like, it's not healthy. I don't understand how someone could be like a Gatorade, say, you know what would be a great seller? Lime. Okay, what are we mixing them with? Get this, cucumber. Because the cucumber overpowers the lime. It almost just tastes like a weird cucumber sugar drink. Like someone set a cucumber in water and then dump 3 spoonfuls of sugar in. That's how disgusting. Imagine how disgusting that sounds. That's what it tastes like. That's my sidebar. You have any thoughts on that, Matt?
No, serves you right for getting a Gatorade.
What am I supposed to do, buddy? As soon as I got in my car, my legs are cramped. I'm like, could you imagine if I had to restart the race? I never would have had. I would have just been like, you know what? I'm just walking at this point.
Or you could just pack yourself some water, or pack yourself your own weird concoction that you would drink post-race.
No, I did run with the water. Because that way I was like, the water bottles you get for like really cheap are like so thin. That's so that I could just like crush it up and throw it in my side pocket so that it wouldn't bother me as I was running, right? Because like, I'm not going to just chuck it. And
you could have just drank some of that dirty pond water.
oh, buddy, you could see the swirls in it, and I was like, good Lord. A little bit gets in my mouth. I'm like, this is so disgusting. It almost just tastes like mud. I'm like, this is disgusting. And then I come home. People were like,
and they're like, "Oh, it was just a sewer backed up."
well, they were like, what's that streak down your face? And I'm like, I don't know. The fire department did the thing. Who knows? They're probably like, this one jackass. Like, what, didn't he realize the path was flooding worse and worse? But I had already gone down. And then I went down. Like, I came back a little bit and then went back. So I had gone to the flood twice. But I had tried to pace it out where if I go 3 down, 2 back, two forward again, and then 3 back, I should theoretically have been under the bridge. But somewhere I miscalculated. I must have been way further than 3. And then it really threw me off since I had to walk another 3 kilometers. Or at that point, since I'm trudging through water, it threw my watch off and didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Are we swimming now?
It would have been funny if it asked me to put it in swim mode. But that's all I have for that. Any other random summer sports things you have?
No.
Because I only have 2 other things, and I hate talking about college football. I don't really have anything for the NFL, but I wanted to bring up the All-Star game because growing up as a kid, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the home run derby was like based on how many outs you had, or like pitches, like a pitch count. So like you would need a good pitcher, where like he was like your buddy, the guy that you always threw batting practice with, where you knew, hey, you're going to give me a good pitch. Because I saw people were complaining about, well, that guy's pitcher sucked. I'm like, I think they picked the pitcher though. It's like if you bring the guy and he has an off day, it's like, yeah, you really screwed me there. But it's like I picked you though, so like it's my fault. But now they're like doing a time. So if one pitcher's like leisurely out there, just like, oh, here you go, ice cream truck. Like, oh, let me do a no more and redo my gloves here, and then I'm going to throw you another one. And you're taking 15 seconds to throw a pitch. Like, I feel like I would just be out there like, you ready? And I have like 15 balls in my shirt, and I'm just throwing them and hoping that guy's hitting them, right? Because it's how many you can get in 3. What they changed it to? In 2015, they changed it. Previously, each player had a number of outs to work with. Any swing that didn't result in a home run was an out, right? Very easy. So you had 10 outs from 1991 to 2013. In 2014, they tried to speed it up to just 7 outs, which, okay, that makes sense. But now they're like, no, we're going to give you 3 minutes to hit as many home runs as you can, and then we're going to do this weird tiebreaker thing. And then there was like a debate. You wanted to explain the debate on the miscalculation last night?
Yeah, so apparently when one of the earlier matchups where Pujols and Schwarber were matched up with each other, Pujols he had the worst odds to win it, but ended up winning his first round matchup 20-19. But what ended up happening was that ESPN miscalculated, so they didn't count his 18th home run, so it showed up that he lost. Where it should have been, it should have been tied, and they should have been able to have like whatever their playoff was,
which is probably just another minute. I think that's what they do. They add another minute. If it matches like the latest whatever the show video game on the Xbox, I think that's what happens. You hit 3 minutes, and then if you're tied, they give you another minute. But then like the guy, you're like waiting, like, yo, bro, throw me a good pitch. And if he only gives you like 2 good pitches in that 1 minute, then you're like, you only hit 2 more home runs, which is unfair. Because it's not like a speed thing. Like I said, the guy, if I was on there, I would be having like 3 balls in my other hand. I joked about putting them in my shirt, bro, but I'd be out there. If I'm the pitcher, I'm going to be like, you ready to go? Like, you're a boxer. You should be able to hit 3 minutes worth of bats. Like, you're not going to be tired.
The crazy thing with it is that, like, you would think that something would have been announced because people bet on that. So, like, you're pissing with people's money now. Like,
I would think it would be rigged. Like, I would never gamble on a home run derby now. The outs make sense to me because it's fair. The time thing, like, you can always be rigged. And you can't tell me that and in the sport where dudes are hitting garbage cans to tip pitches, you can't tell me that one random pitcher didn't bet on the other guy and he's like, you know what, I'm just going to slow this down by a couple seconds. You know, I knew that guy hit 18. I'll throw maybe 15 good pitches, you know? Like, oops, we're running out of time. Hold on, my hand's a little wet. Ooh, let me dry it off there.
It's so sweaty out here.
Yeah, it's like, the NBA, they're like, yep, we only had that one ref that was fixing games. It's like, really? Only one guy? One guy for years. He didn't like tip it off to his buddies. Are you sure that it's not like a rampant thing where players are in on it too? Because like if no one's watching your game, who cares? They're not going to know, right? Like basketball is probably the easiest to fix because the one guy's like, yeah, I made a bazillion shots in practice, but I know like I can just miss it just a little bit to make it look close and no one will ever know any difference.
Well, they said like with basketball, those guys are such good shots that you back up an extra foot when you're playing defense and like they just start knocking down shots. Like you still play just as hard on offense, but like you give a little bit more of an open look and it just covers that spread that much more.
Yeah, that's me playing at the elementary school. I'm like, back up, son. Let me teach you a lesson. And they're like, you're not a teacher. And I'm like, I got to go, guys.
See you later.
The other thing I had for the home run derby, Acuna, my guy, they must have realized the Braves, they were like, they called in a little thing with the pyrotechnics. They're like, yo, just scare him a little bit, right? We won the World Series without him last year. We don't want him to get him too comfortable. So the pyrotechnics, they didn't have the stage marked or whatever.
You can clearly see that they weren't fans of Metallica.
I know. I was going to say, James Hetfield had that same exact thing happen where he said that they had the stage markings, but it was like dark or whatever, and he got confused where he was supposed to be. And then, of course, like the guy throwing the pyrotechnics, he doesn't know. He's going by the musical, whatever, because it's like, it's Metallica. You pretend it's not choreographed. That shit is choreographed, right? You watch some of those 80s hair bands, they're like all synchronized headbanging. You think they just randomly woke up on a Saturday and they were like, hey, I think we're all headbanging at the same time. Like no, they probably practice that for hours at a time, right? So he even said in like behind the music they used to do, which used to be pretty cool, where he was confused where he was supposed to be. Like he knew where he was supposed to be. Timing was kind of off and the pyrotechnic like melted his arm, I think. And that tour with Guns N' Roses. And it almost happened at the All-Star game. But I was thinking, like, why? Why do you need pyrotechnics? And why do they need to be on the stage, right? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And it's like, oh, like the USA Today, hilariously caught unaware by the pyrotechnics. It's like, oh, yeah, because it's hilarious when a guy could get melted. Or is that like is it out in the outfield? It's hard to tell from the video. Like, I don't know if it was close to him or not. It said he was scared of it. I think it's on the stage, right?
Yeah.
He's just, because it looks like, I have it up now. I don't think I have the sound on. Yeah, it looks like the fire's right there. And they all shake their head, right? So they all kind of react because it's probably hot. I mean, anyone stand by a grill and you open it up when you're cooking and you're like, holy crap, that hit me in the face, you know? Or like an oven.
Yes.
If you don't know what you're doing, that's almost what that felt like, where he felt the heat and then he flinched. Like, I don't think he was like he was like joking around by it. Like, it would have been real funny if his hat melted. And he's like has 3rd-degree burns or something. So I don't know. I'm watching the game kind of now. I just don't get All-Star games anymore. Like, I just don't get it. I had some of the television things up. I was going to use it as a segue to like the NIL stuff in college football. Because like we're talking about television deals coming through. And they're saying that the most watched sporting event of the year, other than the NFL, is the college football playoffs. And then looking at the other sports, where of course my phone must not have saved it. The second, I think, was the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And then after that, there was a list all the way down where like the NHL was like the 9th most popular sport, right above women's college basketball final. Like their most watched was like whatever. I think the 3rd college football Olympics, I think is what it was. And then the 3rd one was college basketball. So it was even above the NBA. And yeah, I'm not seeing it. I should have, damn it. I thought I took a screenshot, but it's not showing up in my phone. Which is my other beef, dude. You live by a big city, you would think that you'd have cell phone service. They keep talking about like, yo, get 5G. It's like, bro, I don't even get 3G where I am. And I'm like right outside the capital. What the hell? That's my other thing. You have anything else on Major League Baseball or the NFL?
No.
The NFL, I'm just waiting. I hate talking about the same, like, oh, will they, won't they? Thing with, like, Deshaun Watson, like, what's going to happen? What are they doing? Everything happens in the Major League Baseball All-Star game. I might bring it back up since I have it on. But, I did have one other thing to segue in. The Madden ratings, right? So they did the top 10 receivers. And Jamar Chase, man, they had him out of the top 10. And I'm like, they have Terry McLaurin in and Mike Evans. And, like, I like Mike Evans. But, like, I think Chase is more dynamic. And I think he should be ahead of them. I think he should be ahead of Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen gets hurt a lot, right? So, like, if I'm talking in terms of, like, just pure talent, I've never really seen Keenan Allen take over a game like Chase did last year in the playoffs. And then same with Amari Cooper. It's like Cooper put some games together, but to me, he never, like, has that it factor where I watched Jamar Chase last year, and it was almost in that one playoff game where he was like, he might win the game himself. Like in the Super Bowl, like they knew the ball was going to him, and they couldn't stop him. Like Justin Jefferson, I think he should be up there. I'm not really high on Stephon Diggs. They have him high. I feel like he's a lot hype, right? But the only ones I would put above Chase are Jefferson, then Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and then Devontae Adams, which I wonder how Devontae Adams shakes out this year. I don't understand how Devontae Adams is ahead of Cooper Kupp, since Cooper Kupp basically won everything last year and won the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So, like, why would you put the guy that didn't do any of that ahead of him?
Well, that way he can say, hey, at least I'm tops on the video game. I got my card pack.
I mean, I honestly, if I'm looking at the two, I would still have Tyreek Hill above Devontae Adams. Like, show me what you're doing this year without Aaron Rodgers. You could say the same thing with, like...
with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
See what you're going to do without having that Kansas City offense machine with Mahomes there.
He has a ring, Matt. That's why I would put him ahead.
Wow.
Devontae Adams has not put it together. Like, you're supposed to be the guy with Aaron Rodgers. Everyone talks him up, like, as this king. And, like, where are you in the playoffs, right? They only scored, 13 points? Like, were in a special teams battle.
There's no special teams.
Could you imagine? Like, they can't even cover Kupp or even Chase in the playoffs. But, yeah, you're telling me that Adams couldn't even break free against that 49ers defense that had got torn up some points last year? That's my NFL thing. What'd they say? Oh, Bobby Brown from the Rams got 6 games for doing illegal substances too. Let's get into college football now. I don't really have much more to add in. I mean, it'll probably go longer, but Lane Kiffin comes out. He's complaining about NIL, right? Again. And it's like, buddy, you're at Ole Miss.
Now, this is also coming with the fact that the SEC media days are starting. It's not just Lane Kiffin just getting up and teeing off on NIL.
He's been against NIL every month, it seems. He has a new quip about it. So the media days, he's talking about how we need a salary cap. Did you need a salary cap when they were doing the blind side about Ole Miss? When they were doing all these other pay-for-plays? Like when they were just signing Treadwell, when they're flipping him. I think, didn't they flip him from Michigan like the last day? And he has the pictures with the 2 girls and all that money. It's like, oh, yeah, I bet that is why you flipped, right? Was that him? And then they also did Kimdiche. Was that the same thing? I think it was like that one class where they're like, oh, wait, yeah, you were paying.
Because we talked about it on here. That we're like, there's literally no, like, where is this coming from? They're going to end up on sanctions.
Yeah, so no, that's perfectly fine with Ole Miss. Nothing about that. They can get money there, Matt. But now that other schools are like actively paying, Ole Miss can't keep up, so that's not fair. Now they need a salary cap, right? They're getting all this money from television deals and all this extra money, but they can't do that. Can't really afford that. And that's the one thing that annoys me. It's like your school pretty much went ahead, paid players, had some scandals or whatever. And I'm bringing this up right now as I go. So, Michigan has led for Treadwell for a long time. But that could be changing. Oh, really? Oh, really, Matt? So then he just like, and then they're like, oh, he said he's down between Michigan and Notre Dame, right? Not so fast, my friend. Ole Miss has that picture of him with those two girls and that money, and he's going to Ole Miss now, out of the blue. And I'm like, are you serious? And that was like the Brady hoax, like one of his first years where they were like, they had just beat Virginia Tech, and like the Orange Bowl, they had like 11 wins. So like it wasn't like bad Michigan. It was like trending up Michigan because Brady Hoke had like a top 5 class that year. And then they still lost guys to whatever. The Wolverines found out that they will be contending with Ole Miss, who is believed to be their leader at this point. Like randomly on December 8th, Matt. They're like, holy crap. We don't know why, but he said that now he's ready there. So that's my one thing. Like, Ole Miss, I don't care, Lane Kiffin. I know you've had your issues other places, and I kind of like you as a coach. But, buddy, the salary cap is not the way to get it done. And this is coming from like a guy, like I'm in support of athletes. A salary cap helps no one. I'm actually in the support of like Ohio State. I think their athletic director came out and said that if they're going to try to push some of these other initiatives, then they need to get rid of the scholarship limit. And I agree with him, because at what point, if you're going to say like, no, you can only sign like this amount of people, but fans keep giving and giving and giving, where's the extra money going to go then? It's going to go back into what? Statues of Joe Paterno? Like other random things that people don't want at the campus, right? And then they're going to be like, well, we just got this new mini golf. What was Clemson putting in? Water fountains and stuff? It's like, great work, guys. Can't pay the guys because it's not fair to Ole Miss. But I found an old quote from Lee Corso, everybody's favorite game day guy after Desmond Howard. He said, where is it? I have the wrong one up. He says, damn it, where did I send it? I know I sent it to you. Lee Corso said that years ago, Michigan would sign 100 scholarship players just to keep Indiana and other schools from being any threat to them. They would not even play 30 of those players throughout their entire 4 years of eligibility. And I would say, who cares? Isn't the entire scam behind college sports that you're getting a free education, right? And here I am saying it about like other sports in the summer. This is my callback to like, you have kids doing swimming or basketball or hell, soccer, golf year round. One of the seniors tonight, like they're getting a scholarship for golf. It's like, okay, if a school's going to fund scholarships for golf, let them fund it. Why limit them to like, oh yeah, you can only have 3 scholarships for that because we have to have men's and women's equal. I think whatever you need to do, keep it equal. Don't limit it by sports. Like if like Michigan says, you know what, we're going to really crush water polo now, and we really need to have 20 water. What was it? Water polo? What was the article we brought in a couple months ago where they were complaining that Michigan's Title IX, them in Alabama had like a bunch of women stashed on like water polo? Is that what it was?
That might have been.
Where they're like, that's not fair. How are they offsetting Title IX by having all these women's water polo? It's like maybe they want to try to win a national championship in water polo, right? If they want to give 120 football scholarships out, like I think there should be whatever the roster limit is. Is it 120? I don't think the travel's 100, right? It's like 80. It's like 100 something at home, but the away roster has to be like whatever 80 it is. I think if a team can fully fund scholarships, they should offer as many scholarships as the NCAA allows for roster size for all sports, right? If I'm a guy, Penn State has a guy that's doing hockey. If he's donating to hockey, he should be able to fully fund every scholarship for the entire hockey team in terms of NIL, right? Because I hear all these complaints saying, oh, well, some of these guys, I think it was a random coach at maybe the Big 12 or Pac-12 media days where they were like, some of these guys are getting a rude awakening where they're only going to get $1 or $2 grand NILs. It's like, yeah, and some of them aren't even on scholarship because of these BS rules. So if you're going to have a fully funded donor come in and say, I'm going to put my name on it. We made fun of like people putting their name on stadiums. Let them be like, hey, you get like as a joke, we'll say like, oh, you get a Desmond Howard football scholarship at the University of Michigan. And like Desmond Howard's the guy paying for it, so his name's there. I just picked an alum. Like, he's not doing that. But like, I think that you should be able to do that. Like, if you're an alum, or like that guy from Miami that's doing like, what's he doing, like 5,000 or whatever, that gym guy, go ahead and just say like, no, you know what I'm going to do? My business is going to be, Oregon's going to have the Nike football scholarship, and we're paying for as many football scholarships as we can. And then you're going to be able to bring in guys because they're still putting their time in. They're paying their own way. Like some of these walk-ons, you're paying your own way. You have to also practice, do all this stuff, travel with the team. And then what do you get at the end of it? Like, you get a congratulations ring or whatever. At least, like, Lee Corso complaining about it, like, cracks me up, like, back in the day. Like, hey, buddy, they're getting a free education. Who cares if they're getting beat up every day? Could you imagine if you're the guy going, like, against Ndamukong Suh? Every day, he's just punching you in the face, and you're like, oh, man, at least I have to pay student loans for this.
At least
for 40 years or whatever it ends up being. Like, at least one day I'll be able to graduate. Like, at least the scholarship limits, to me, they're a thing of the past. If you're going to open up NILs, I think you should just make it unlimited, because we already talked about, like, hey, UCLA, they were going to go bankrupt. They were going to have to drop all these sports. Now they can fund them in the Big Ten. Like, okay, why are they having them then if they're losing money? Like, honestly, why is UCLA continuing to play these sports then? Right? What is the benefit? Is it so that they can bring in new students? It's definitely a marketing tactic, because, like, I've heard people be like, oh, yeah, well, so-and-so has a great soccer program. You can find their soccer gear all over Europe. And it's like, okay, so they're clearly using that to recruit foreign students, right? So, like, make them pay for it, right? Why use sense. like some schools have like a student fund where you have to pay a certain amount of money, and it goes towards like the athletic department for your school. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. To me, that shouldn't be a thing. If you can't either fund your sport on revenue, and whether the athletic department as a whole, like, let's say football is so successful that you're bringing in, I brought in like a chart here. I think I sent it to you too, where it was like the revenue from like the top sports teams. And at the top, it was A&M, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State. You know what's not surprising about any of them? They all have like 100-seat stadiums, Matt, for football. 100,000. So they're bringing in however much money into there. And that's a 3-year average revenue where they're making over $100 million. So who cares if those 5 schools or whatever want to play water polo, right? Like, who cares if Michigan and Alabama are up there? They're paying for water polo scholarships or whatever else they want to do, you know? So that's my thing. I'm on the side of the athlete because I've been there, and I want them to be able to do whatever. You know how many kids like, hey, you know what, I'm going to have to transfer. I can't really afford school or whatever. Now you're like, I'm going to be there, and maybe you won't transfer as much, right? Because there's rumors that some transfers are really getting screwed. And I think they were kind of hinting at Addison from Pitt, right?
Yeah.
Did we talk about that last week?
I think we touched on it, that they were promising NIL deals, and you're seeing with some of those recruits that there's more players that are starting to hit the portal, and you're seeing the teams that they're not having as much turnover. It's because if they're putting NIL money out there, they're following through with it. Those guys are going to stay. If they're promising all kinds of stuff and they're not keeping up with that end, that's going to create problems. But I think, you know, what you're seeing now with the NILs, it's the same thing that you're seeing with some of these guys, even within college, that they're jumping from private school to private school to try to get more attention, and it's leading to getting into I'm committing here, I'm decommitting, I'm signing here. They're offering me more NIL money, and then this isn't enough because they just are offering this much to somebody else, so now I'm leaving. And so it's I think with time it'll sort itself out, but clearly the traditional bigger schools are going to have more of an advantage right now just because of that, the fan base and the money generated, and all the stuff that you've commented on over the years as far as like TV and marketing deals and things like that. That when you have that extra money, you can pour it into your sports that are going to generate more revenue. Like with football, a lot of people hate it, but the fact of the matter is, it's a money making thing, and it involves a lot of people at universities and schools to put on your football program. So by investing in it and having a quality football program, it generates so much more interest to the school. People are going to be interested in applying for academics. A lot of those high-rise academic buildings are built on football money. So it's like you're crazy if you think that a lot of that stuff isn't. They're investing in the football program, but it's paying dividends to the university.
And that's one of the things too, where we look at recruiting, where you talked about like some of the guys transferring and like what are they getting for the college and stuff. Some of the ones that like have been rumored, like did we talk about Florida and Michigan, how like recruiting's been tough? They haven't been like over promising. And you look at the transfer portal in terms of like the blue chip ratio, only 4 schools have either stayed the same or gone up because they're not losing those transfer guys when they come in. They're keeping their promises. It is the Florida and Michigan, along with, of course, Georgia and Alabama, where they've been so far ahead of everybody that it's kind of outrageous. I mean, Ohio State has a decent-sized drop with transfers, which we've known about, guys going to like Texas or even Miami. Miami even falls out of the blue chip ratio. So I don't think you can like discount transfers anymore where, hey, we're going to throw the blue chip ratio. Miami has a chance to win a natty. Hey, do they actually have the talent on their roster? Oh, no. Yeah, they lost 6% of that talent in the transfer portal. It's like, okay, well, they don't have enough talent then. Like, you can't just pretend like, oh, yeah, well, they recruited those guys. Now they're still there. Like, teams are losing. If you're losing 6% of your blue chip prospects, that's not going to be a good sign. I know they went through a coaching change. So maybe like the new NIL stuff, they are following through on promise and their stuff is not that. But some of the other ones, like the higher ones, you can't tell me like Ohio State brings a quarterback in that's very highly recruited, has all these things. He transfers the very first year. Do you think it was because of the NIL money? Or do you think it was because, guess what, he didn't really play at all? Right? Because I'm sitting here hearing all this hype about how Manning is now going to sit behind him, take like a redshirt year and kind of just hang out at Texas. I would be highly shocked if he didn't transfer, right? Like Sarkisian, you're telling me that if Sarkisian has another, 6-year or 6-win season, that Arch Manning's just going to sit there and like not play? I mean, I'm kind of worried about the same thing with Michigan now, where you have J.J. McCarthy that supposedly has like $1 million NIL deals we talked about to sit on the bench.
But that's just
like,
it.
How many years is he going to be here? Is he going to wait or go pro? You can't go pro with not playing.
Why can't you? You're getting paid. Like if you're a millionaire and you're not even doing anything, that's like the greatest job. He just hang out at college, go pound some beers.
Yeah, but at this point, you could also graduate and then go play it like, hey, Pitt had pretty good. They with a great quarterback that went super high in the draft for quarterbacks from Pitt. I can go play there. Tear up the ACC. Like, I think I've had enough experience here. I mean, he looked pretty good in the game against Georgia. I wish they would have used him more. So I wonder, like, is he going to actually just end up playing more this year and it won't be a problem? Or, like, I see Michigan having the problem, and I'm like, man, that really sucks for Harbaugh to figure that out. And then I look at Texas, and I'm like, ESPN's hyping this up like they got it figured out. They definitely don't. There's no way they're going to have that happen. But I think that's my main stuff for NILs. Like, people are like harping on Miami losing all these guys or their NIL deal sour. I'm not sold on them being one of the ones. Obviously, USC is kind of like suspect with the coaching change, and some of the other schools, predominantly like in the South, right? Where you see these guys going to these schools, and I think it was the Baylor coach. People were hounding him because he made a quirk about Texas Tech, about like players are now finding out that they sign up to go make only $1,000 to live in the desert. And like very clearly about Texas Tech, right? About them losing a guy to them from, I think it was TCU, right? So TCU's in Dallas. They have a ton of businesses there. That's what I'm saying. Like some of these schools, you got to be careful what you wish for. SEC, you've been like hounding like, oh yeah, we're really going to turn it around. You don't want the money to start burning at some of these bigger schools. You just don't. You don't want a USC in the Big Ten throwing money around like it was the Pete Carroll days, right? They don't want that. They don't want that hype. Oregon has to be scared. Phil Knight has supposedly been reaching out to every conference, and he's been begging the Big Ten to let Oregon in. So, like, don't be surprised if, like, you hear, hey, Nike is the official apparel of the Big Ten conference, and then next day Oregon gets an invite, right? Because it's all about money at some point. And some of the data that they put out about TV viewership, Oregon's pretty high. But if your biggest donor is like, hey, I put so much money into building up Oregon, I'm not going to have us get left behind. And we definitely don't want to lose the LA recruiting base, right? Some people argue that's why Nebraska's kind of fallen off. But you don't know that. I could very well see Oklahoma join the SEC and completely fall off. I could see them pulling in Nebraska, right?
But is there any way that the governor Newsom in California can fight?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up next. So they're trying to do something with like the bylaws of like the system down there, which is what you hear from like North Carolina and NC State, where like people are like, oh yeah, North Carolina's going to go with Duke. North Carolina is not tied with Duke at all. Duke is a private school, right? UCLA and USC, I mean, they kind of went together. UCLA is actually tied to Cal. They're the public schools, right? If by some weird quirk, which I thought that the board said that, hey, we know they didn't follow protocols, but we have nothing in our bylaws to stop this, so we're just going to kind of meet on it. That's what I've heard. They're going to meet on it as like a formality and try to push for Cal to join the Big Ten. If the governor stops it, what would stop the Big Ten from saying, oh, we're just going to keep USC, though, and take Stanford now, too? Or like, hey, no, you know what? We'll take Oregon instead. Like, we're just going to kill your state anyway. Because, like, I think it would really hurt if they took Stanford and USC and, like, Oregon and Washington. What would he have done UCLA? Like, they would have left them in what? A depleted Pac-12? They would have went back to it being, like, the Pac-8 without any of their big schools? Because like we talked about the TV viewership like last week, Washington and Oregon are like the only ones that are drawing millions out there. So if the Big Ten does swoop in, and that's the rumor, like they might try to just grab Oregon and Washington and get to 20, whether Notre Dame wants to come or not. They might take Stanford or like some other West schools. Like what if they did take Cal, Stanford, Oregon, and Washington is like to get to 20? That would be a pretty solid West division or whatever. And hell, even if they stopped at 18 and only took 2 of them or whatever, I think you could make a pretty good case for like a good pod out there and go with that. I just don't see how California, they're in a lose-lose. Same with like Washington and Washington State. I have a hard time believing Washington State had good viewership. I still think a lot of that going back years is Mike Leach, right? And you talked about them having another coach that had some good seasons, and then he ended up getting let go or whatever. So maybe they're going to fall off. I just really don't see like if UNC and Duke decide to go to like the Big Ten or the SEC. I think the SEC hurts more because I really don't think they're going to be like, hey, you should take NC State too. And what the SEC going to say? You know what? No, we'll skip you. And then what's UNC going to do? Go to the beg the Big Ten? Like, I just don't see how they can force a conference's hand. I did find like another article back in the day where someone kept tweeting it out because they think that the ACC started it with, of course, ESPN. So ESPN, the original article, if you remember, when Maryland left to go to the Big Ten, they said that a lot of it was started because ESPN was pushing the ACC to recruit 2 schools from the Big Ten. They never really said who they were. A lot of people assumed it was like Penn State, because they sent Pitt and Wake Forest to negotiate. But Wake Forest is a private school, right? So, like, who would they be trying to bring? Northwestern? That's the only, like, that would get the ACC into Chicago. I don't think that they really have pulled, like, Illinois. Someone said maybe they could have tried to get Michigan State and Penn State, which, I mean, Penn State's not a basketball school, but Penn State gives Pitt, like, that rivalry. Hell, maybe they went to Indiana and Michigan State. Like, I think that would have been a big shift. I don't think that would have made Florida State happy. Unless they went to Ohio State and Michigan and they're like, hey, you guys want to join? They're like, no, who is this? Why would we leave? We make more money than you guys. That's why I don't like Penn State. I could just imagine how that conversation went. Like, hey, yeah, we just got that Big Ten network deal. We're making like $40 million a year, and we're the ACC. We think we can get you like 25 right now, maybe 30. And the Big Ten's like, wait, isn't Maryland bankrupt and Florida State bankrupt right now? And they're like, well, they technically are, but we're going to give Florida State a little bit more money, help them out. And then Maryland's like, well, we're definitely not doing this, so we're leaving. And then they end up leaving to the Big Ten. I don't think their lawsuit went anywhere because they filed it in North Carolina, which was a dumb move.
And they've been awful ever since.
Matt, you can't bitch about Maryland. They've been winning national championships. I think they're like third or fourth in Big Ten championships behind, of course, Michigan and Ohio State. I think it's like Michigan. I know Michigan's number one because I talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show. Michigan, Ohio State, and then I think either Maryland or Penn State in terms of like championships and stuff that they're bringing in. So why not? And you can't say that they're awful in football because remember when Texas scheduled them and went 0-2? That's what's funny. It's like, Maryland sucks. And it's like, did you see them get killed by Ohio State and Michigan? It's like, yeah, but did you also see them beat Texas, who's like 10 wins and might be in the Big 12 championship? People are like, no, we casually forgot that game. Like, we blocked that one out just because Maryland's so bad. It's like, yeah, but they're bad in the Big 10 because the Big 10 is just better overall. That's why, like, people are saying, oh, the Big 10 should add Iowa State. And I keep seeing it, and I'm like, they're never going to add Iowa State. Iowa State lost AAU status. They're not going to come in and bring anything. They might be winning games in the Big 12. There's no way that they're going to come in and come anywhere near 10 wins. Look at Nebraska. Nebraska's coming out of their element. And they're getting their asses kicked every year. I'm sure Nebraska's thought the same thing. Like, oh, Big 10 sucks. We're easily going to be in the championship. And USC's probably thinking the same thing. And I hope that they do. I actually wish USC was in the Big 10 this year because to watch them get run out of the building by Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State would probably be good for the Big 10 because we really don't want them to come in and like lock down recruiting with Lincoln Riley. It would be good to get a couple ass kickings in before he really takes off, right? Right? Yeah. I mean, those schools recruit out in California, Nebraska too. Like, it'd be good if they were coming in this year just to get a couple of ass kickings out of the way so Lincoln Riley doesn't build that up to like Pete Carroll status. I'm sure the Big Ten wants Pete Carroll USC back though. So they're probably like, yeah, Lincoln Riley, let's get it done. Let's pay these guys. Let's get it done. Get all the money in. And then ESPN sitting there on their hands, which is funny because ESPN keeps trying to like talk about, hey, we're going to kill the Pac-12. Pac-12 is dying on all their articles. Pac-12 should just join the ACC. ESPN owns the rights to the ACC. Of course, they're trying to get more content in. They're raising the price on ESPN Plus, right? They need shows. It's $10 a month now, unless you do the package. You think they're going to stop at $10? I wouldn't be surprised if in like 5 or 10 years, if ESPN Plus isn't at $20 and you still get the same amount of games. Like, they're still not going to show you. Everything's going to be blacked out. I actually had an ACC map. I should have figured out how to put it on the show of like their blackout. The entire East Coast for ACC games are blacked out. Up through like Penn State or Pennsylvania, you can kind of get some. That's like where it starts to be half and half because of how big Penn State is. But like North Carolina, I can't watch like half of their games. Everything on the ACC network's blacked out because we have we have 4 schools here with Wake Forest. And then, of course, there's some overlap with Virginia and Virginia Tech. So, heaven forbid, I can watch Virginia Tech play like Georgia Tech or something. No way. That's definitely blacked out. Boston College versus Duke, blacked out. It's like, oh, Florida State, Clemson. No, that's probably going to be blacked out, son. You better hope that's on ABC because you're not watching it. And it's like, well, why am I caring about the ACC anymore? Why am I paying $10 a month for these blackouts?
Yeah.
I don't know how good the Big Ten blackouts are, but I never could you imagine if Penn State was blacked out in Pennsylvania? They were mad about Paterno statue getting left. You think they're gonna put up with a blackout? For whatever reason, it only affects the ACC. I can watch any SEC game, maybe because there's no SEC school in North Carolina, so maybe they do have the same issue. But like growing up in Pennsylvania, I never had any issue with like Big Ten games being blacked out. I come to the South, ACC games are constantly blacked out. It drives me mad, dude. I don't know if it's an ESPN thing. I don't know. But anything else you have on that before we get to the final bell?
No.
My final bell is kind of tied in. Just an update on some of the other TV stuff I'm hearing. The Apple is supposedly dropping out of the Big Ten talks, but Amazon is definitely in. And I'm kind of hoping for that because Amazon's been adding like those live NFL games, and it's all been a part of Prime. Like they're not making you pay for like another sports package. It looks like Apple dropped out to pay for NFL Sunday Ticket possibly, which I also wonder how that's going to be because remember that was like a separate $300 charge or something.
Yeah, and
some of it was like $100 a month or something. They had like it was getting pretty high compared to the other sports. So if Apple somehow wrangles that in and it's like, oh yeah, it's part of Apple Plus for $5. If you're looking at that and you're like, I can pay Apple Plus for $5 or I can play ESPN for their blackouts for $10, I would think Apple would win that, right? Maybe that would cause ESPN to kind of drop their things, at least in football season, to drop their money a little bit. Because like if you're paying for the NFL, you would think you got games all Thursday, all day Sunday, and then Monday. That pretty much your weekend is you have Saturdays off if you don't watch college football.
Yeah.
So I would hope that's what I was kind of hoping they would get the Big Ten. Because the one thing that I want with the Big Ten is I would like to see them just have more of their sports games on. Like the new Big Ten network that I saw was that it's only one. They used to have Big Ten Plus and then Big Ten Plus Extended or something stupid like that, where if I'm watching hockey, if Michigan's playing like Ohio State or someone, it's usually on Big Ten. If they're playing Wisconsin, it might be on Big Ten Plus. And if they're playing Michigan Tech, of course, that's on Big Ten Plus Extended, which looks like I'm filming it from my own cell phone in the stands. And it's like, what is this? Well, at least it was free, I think. So I just want consistent things. Notre Dame is asking for $75 million from NBC a year. And I'm like, if the Big Ten schools are each getting $100 million, why are you setting your bar so low? Right? Is Independence worth $25 million a year? Because you have to think, the Big Ten has a 9-game conference schedule, right? Who is Notre Dame going to be scheduling? Right?
Just Independence.
Is USC locking them in every year? Because like Michigan's already been like, yeah, we'll play other schools. Like you were going to be like yanking our chain around. We'll schedule games against like our rivals, Florida, and whoever else we're playing. We're supposed to play like Texas and Oklahoma. Maybe that falls through with the conference expansions, but I really just don't see these other big time schools, like even in the SEC, they already have their rivals. Someone's like, oh, the SEC should accommodate the Notre Dame with that deal that's been rumored with the Big Ten, where SEC schools, five of them will play Notre Dame a year. It's like, but why? Why are you trying to do that in and giving like your extra money to NBC? Like, who cares? Because you know that Notre Dame's not going to play Alabama or Georgia or whatever. They might play one of them because that's how the ACC one works out, right? They either play Clemson or Florida State or whatever, but then they got to get in their games with Boston College and like Wake Forest and like these other smaller schools because they know they could probably win it. The SEC schedule is going to be the same. Well, we got to play Missouri, throw in South Carolina, maybe Vanderbilt. That would be a good one. And then, who else is bad? Arkansas right now. We'll throw in them, and then give us maybe Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. You can hype that one up, right? And people are like, "Wow, Notre Dame, what a great schedule!" It's like, no, they just pick the easier schools they can play. They don't want to play a tough schedule. They don't. I don't know how. I don't think NBC is going to give that to them. They were talking about possibly paying the Big Ten as like a lead-in. I would be shocked if the NBC bought out like one of the big-time Big Ten spots. But could you imagine if big-time Big Ten games were at Fox at noon, NBC at 3:30, and then ABC? They would be on free TV every time slot. That would be insane. That would be insane. That's my final bell. I don't think how even the SEC, with all their games on cable, on ESPN, how are they going to compete with that? Like, how's ESPN? They can't even get money to pay for their contracts without raising their rates. You don't think people are going to cancel? They're not just going to keep throwing money at the SEC for no reason. So, you got anything for the final bell?
No, just check out southboundsports.com. Thanks for the continued support.
Yeah. Hopefully there's some big things that happen. But it's summertime, so we'll see. Maybe another conference expansion will happen. The All-Star game, I hate these bland jerseys. Like, it's like, what did they run this through? Like, the most sane PR thing where they're like, we need to have the jerseys be only gold color and white, or like a gray gold. What happened to the team hats where they had different colors? Remember, didn't they do camo the one year? Like, so dumb. So dumb. Show off your team. How do I know which team these guys play for? There's no reason. Unless I'm like trying to read their hat. Dumb. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.